Liv, so good to be with you again this week. What's happening?
Oh, plenty. Nice to be back. I've been in Brizzy all week working actually, and it was
Oh,
so nice. I probably only needed to go for one day, but I ended up staying for two or three just so I could lie in the bath and, watch Netflix and not have to do the bed routine.
oh my gosh,
Don't tell
so
Mark.
good,
Don't tell
so
Mark.
luxe. Yeah. Oh, I love
I
that.
mean, I work my
Yeah,
butt off when I'm up there, but
yeah.
getting back to the hotel room and saying no to the dinner and just having time to yourself,
Oh,
bliss. So yeah, that's
priceless.
the highlight of my week.
And how
Yeah,
much it's often that great feeling of feeling refreshed when you're back with your family, like you're kind of like, oh, I needed that. I can be my best mum self, at home, good family dynamic, when you've had a little bit of a break. So I think,
yeah.
own it.
I missed them. Oh my god, I
Yes.
really
Yeah.
did miss
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So that was nice to feel because I
Oh,
wasn't missing them
yeah.
when I was going on the plane up there. I was like, see you later.
Adios. Yeah. No,
Oh,
I mean
adios, amigos.
we had
Yeah.
a similar experience. Only last week we went to Bray, which for those listening is a restaurant in the country. It's actually sort of like a fine dining experience, and they've got accommodation there too. So we stayed there for the night and did the long lunch with the wine match and all that, and so had a few vinos and then stayed the night, and it was just so lovely to wake up in the morning on
Yeah.
your own accord and not to a screaming child or demanding yelling
Yeah.
from the other
Yeah.
room. Like, how good, right? Like,
So good to not run a marathon before 8
oh,
a.m. in the morning. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Not be
So
out of
nice. And you've got
breath.
to do it. It's self care. It's self
Oh,
care and it's so important for, obviously when you're doing it with your partner, just important for the relationship too. And you and Jules are fantastic at doing that. I think I
oh,
could probably do more.
oh, it's hard though, like,
I
isn't
go by
it? Like,
myself.
yeah.
I leave Mark with the kids.
Also self care. So,
Self care.
no, love it.
Exactly. And I'm meant to be sane minded. That's what I got to do.
Exactly, absolutely.
Oh,
So today's topic, we're continuing on from our last episode with the dad caller who called in, and we had a bit of a conversation around changing friendships after having children. And the second part of his conversation and call in, I'm going to play right now.
Probably the second quick topic is around careers. And, now that you're a newish parent, you've, to be honest, been treading water for the last few years, just try to cope with having a newborn and the career path just being keeping status quo, just making sure the lights are on and not being too aggressive in trying to pursue new opportunities. That's probably one area where, in terms of risk taking, I've personally dialed it back a little bit. But that being said, now that I have a better routine with the baby, it's almost to the point where, that side of the fence is a bit more settled and now you can really focus on the career. I don't know how other folks have done it. Give you an example. Mercedes, my wife, has driven really hard and got herself a new job, started a new company recently as well. So that's really inspirational. It's really exciting. It's also really challenging. But that said, it's not something that I guess you should stop and take full breaks on, but it's all about just prioritizing. So that's probably another element where, because of the new life situation as a parent, that's something that's taken a little bit of backseat, but it's all happy days because you've got your little one to come home to and play around.
So basically, this particular topic, I thought it would be really cool to explore with you further, Liv. Like, are our careers put on hold to some extent once we have a child? Like, what was your experience?
I mean, my personal experience is that my career hasn't been put on hold, but that's because I've made really deliberate decisions to continue to work full time and hire in the biggest village of support I possibly could get to be able to do that. Like, I feel that I made a really deliberate decision to continue working, right? Like,
Yeah.
to prioritize both being a mum but also my career because I love my job. And that was really important to me to maintain, I think. I never thought that I would not work. Because I know how important that is to my overall well-being and happiness, and had Tommy, and was off for 9 months working really hard as a mum.
Yes.
Because being a mum and a parental caregiver has got to be one of the toughest jobs, and it is equally tough when you decide to be a parental caregiver and be a paid employee of a business too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Lots of things that you have to sacrifice if you are, determined to keep pushing ahead in your career, because I think we've spoken about a number of times on the pod now. It ain't easy.
No.
And that's certainly been my learning. If we're, the boys, Tommy's 3.5 now. The last 3.5 years have certainly been the toughest.
Oh, yeah.
It's a true test of your grit and your determination, and probably your commitment. And, there are multiple, I don't have to keep working, right? Like, I could reduce from full-time to 3 days if I wanted, but I found that doing my job in 3 days was not good for my well-being, because I was really stressed and not a happy person. So the better decision for me was, funnily enough, to increase to 5 days.
Yeah.
And have the boys in more care. But the mum guilt that goes along with that really cripples me some days, because I feel like, am I prioritising my career over my kids? I know my kids are my priority, but we can't help but feel that sometimes maybe they're not. And I catch myself when, Harry or Tommy's sick, and I'm thinking, why today? I've got such an important meeting, and I'm just looking for the easiest way to handball them. Who can I handball them to? And, you got to, I have to give myself a bit of a reality check from time to time around, what's most important here, going to do that presentation or the health of my kids. Like, come on. So
we all do it,
it's a
though.
journey.
Oh, do you know what? We all do it. And talking about the mum guilt, so for me, I very much resonate with that. For example, at the moment, my parents usually have the kids, little Noah and Charlie, on a Tuesday. They've been in Europe for the last couple of months. So we've basically, I put them in daycare, both in daycare on that day. So little Noah attends a school up the road and does the early learning program with them, but has Tuesdays off. And Charlie usually does the 4 days at daycare. They're both doing 5 days now in total of and there was that factor of, I probably could look after them on a Tuesday. Like, yes, it would be stressful. Yes, I would still get phone calls. Yes, I would be still competing with my job, but I've got a bit of flexibility with the work that I do. I could technically work from home. However, that's not the best thing for my mental well-being. And don't get me wrong, the daycare option ain't a cheap one. Like $150 for each child times, that's $300 that, but that was what we needed to do for my well-being as well. Because I actually am scared to have them both at home on my own. Like, it's a lot of work.
Well, that's what I had been doing, having them both at home. I'm so lucky to have a really flexible employer. And, they were okay with me having both the boys at home, because they know that I do well above my contracted hours.
Yeah.
But I was just so stressed because things pop up in your day.
Yeah.
And, to have both the kids, Tommy's like, Mummy, my next YouTube. And I'm like, okay, this is the only day you're allowed YouTube. Coming into meetings and just bloody chaos. It was too much. I'd get to 5 o'clock and I'd be in the fetal position. I can't do this. And that would create tension in Mark and our relationship. I was like, why is this on me? Like, I feel like, again, I'm the primary caregiver, and the waiting, even though I know in reality it's very balanced, on those days it just felt so out of whack, and I blamed him.
It's like for $300 or well, actually though, and for whatever that costs, it's worth that for and everyone has different circumstances, but for for yourself or for me, it's just worth that to be able to do my job in peace, think clearly, because let's be real, we don't think clearly when there are kids around. Like, it's so tough. I want to hear about how you felt. You said that your job keeps you sane. So during those 9 months of maternity leave for Tommy, your first was 9 months, wasn't it, that you took off? Or so how did you
9
feel?
months. 9 months for Tommy.
How did you feel mentally?
I mean, I really probably enjoyed the first 6 months. I loved being a mum and in the newborn bubble, and it was pre-COVID, so I had a fantastic mums group, and we were doing really fun things. But probably at the 6 month mark, I was really starting. Yeah, I was ready to go back. Having said that, I was always on my emails because I'm a bit of a control freak. And sorry, team, they know that. They're like, go away, Liv. Like, honestly, we got this.
Yeah.
And they did. They did have it, and I probably should have enjoyed it more. In fact, I wish. Now, I had only 3 months with Harry. I should have taken longer.
Did you take 3 months only?
Now.
Wow.
So I went back 2 days after 3 months when Harry was 3 months old. And I thought that would be really doable, but 2 days became 3 days, became 4 days very, very quickly. So I was probably 4 days by the time he was maybe 5 or 6 months old. So, I've got those fond memories of expressing in the wellness room in work. And one of my junior lawyers walked in and you should have seen his face. I'll never forget it. Bless his cotton socks. He's never looked at me the same way. That is for sure. I don't know how much he saw, but he was just, I walked down the corridor now and he practically turned and looked at me. Shout out.
Hey, life experiences for him too.
Yeah. Life experiences. Young guy. Haven't seen that before. It's normal. It's very natural. Very natural.
Totally.
But yeah, I was. How did I feel? I was ready to get back to work. I was ready to, which is why I knew for Harry that it would be a shorter period. I was probably perhaps a little bit too silly because it's just made. Harry's 18 months now. I'm just exhausted. I think because. Yeah, having 2 kids is full on and having a big job is full on and you just have to work out what's going to give, don't you?
100%. So did you ever feel as though, okay, me having a child and taking time off is going to really prohibit me from moving forward in my career? Did you ever have those thoughts?
I would hate to admit it, but I think that maybe subconsciously that plays into my mind. I'm very ambitious. With Harry, I was actually promoted when I was 8 months pregnant. So that's probably another reason I went back because I felt like I had something to prove. Not that anyone in my organisation encouraged that. In fact, our female CFO at the time said to me, Liv, what are you doing? You're going to regret this. She's like my mum. Every time she says something, it's ended up being true, right? But yeah, perhaps a little bit of that played in. But I'm a big girl, and I knew what I was doing, and I wanted to do it. And I'm, like so many, whatever our generation is, there's so many different names. Yeah. These millennials. Yeah. We're a Gen Y and now millennial, I believe. Yeah. We're just in a hurry. We're in a constant hurry. But I've got girlfriends who have stepped out of the workforce. One of them has stepped out of the workforce for 5 years. Has her career suffered? Absolutely not. She made her decision to be the parental caregiver for her 2 babies for the 5 years and raise them. And she has now just stepped back into the workforce in a really great role. She's no worse off. So I think that's my reflection now around you just have to be so deliberate around what you value and what's important to you. And if your career is important to you, well, good on you, sister girlfriend, you can do it. And it's hard and you have to outsource a whole heap of stuff to make it work. But also, if you wish to be that parental caregiver at home and have that wonderful time with your babies, then good on you. And, society's got to change, I reckon, just around our views on that role of the stay-at-home mum.
100%. The hardest job in the world. Hardest job. I mean, gosh, give me my career any day over. As I said, I've chosen my career. I mean, a bit of mum guilt involved there, but over having the kids together on a Tuesday, I need the support, and I'm just going to own that. I wonder as well, do you think, so this caller was talking about the fact that his wife was actually gunning it with her career, which is fantastic, and he felt as though he has taken the back seat a little bit and just kind of treading water as they sort of try to, handle this new dynamic, having a child involved. So do you think the other person, what's your reflection? Do you think, for example, Mark has had to, pull back a bit because you've gone forward? What do you think?
It's just a balance. Like, I think you can both. It actually doesn't matter what your job is, even if I don't think it matters the responsibility or how much you're paid or how big the job is. If both parents are working and that is their commitment between a certain amount of hours, then they're working and the kids there has to be plans put in place for them. So, has his role changed? No. He's doing the exact same role that he was doing 3 years ago, let alone 5 years ago, let alone today.
Yeah.
We just have to build in flexibility, right? So, again, we're so lucky, our generation, aren't we? I mean, COVID, horrible. Let's not go back there. But, what that has meant for parents in the workplace now, that we can work from home 2 or 3 days and get them earlier from childhood, as we've spoken about previously. Like, that's been a game changer. Maybe if we didn't have that flexibility, I do think that we would have had to be more deliberate around perhaps, did we both have to work 4 days as an example, or do a 9-day fortnight, or, if I didn't have my mum, if I didn't have a cleaner, like these things are all everything that you put in place to be able to do the thing that you want to do, right? What about you?
Look, I think so. For context, for those listening, I'm in property development, and that means we sort of start our day quite early. Like, I'm up quite early anyway, but by about 7 o'clock, everyone's on the construction site. So, my phone's ringing, right, from 7, but by about 3, which works in quite well with the school hours, I have had to be more flexible. And I don't know if that's because of the nature of my work. I work for a family business and I'm sort of my own boss in a way. I guess my dad is technically my big boss, but he's quite hands off as far as how I spend my time. And so if I said, I'm going to get your, grandson from school early because this happened, he would be like, go, run. So I'm very, very fortunate to have that and have that level of flexibility. And my husband, Jules, he works in more of a corporate environment, similarly to yourself, Liv. And so for that, and also has quite a senior role there, and has a team and all of that. So it's a lot harder for him to do the pickup from daycare when so-and-so's banged his head against the wall and has to come home. And it's a lot harder to take that day off work because we've got gastro and someone has to be home with the kids. So it does tend to fall on me a fair bit. And I don't think it's held me back in my career. I think it's just escalated the pressure I put on myself because I have such a high expectation of what I should be producing every day, and my outputs are everything. And I hate to say that because I'd love to think that I unconditionally love myself and me just existing and sitting there is like sufficient. But unfortunately, if I've not done all of the things during the day, I feel like a failure. And that's something that's a personal development thing I'm working on, but it means I run really hot and I do a million things. And so if I have to care for my child because they're home early from daycare, I'm still like, great, well, I still have to complete everything in my workday, even though I've got a child. And if I don't, then I'm angry at myself, even though no one else in the workplace cares. It's all the pressure I put on myself. I don't know. Can you resonate with that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about Mark and I both in corporate environments, right? So one of the boys is sick. We almost have to, who's drawing the shortest straw to stay at home. And, it's a real triggering thing. I do find being the mother, being the primary caregiver, it probably tends to fall to me a little bit more. But Mark is so aware that I am so triggered by this. And he is an amazing dad and really hands-on. But, yeah, we have to just catch ourselves and just be really clearly communicating in terms of what I've got on this week, if on Sunday night. You remember me telling you a couple of weeks ago when I looked at Harry's bum on a Sunday afternoon and realised that he had hand, foot and mouth after all of this illness, that there was just that was my breaking point. I totally broke at that point, and our only action was to get out of Melbourne because we both couldn't have taken leave that week. So we were lucky to flee. So you just got to do what you got to do. Try and make it work. But I think it's an interesting thing. I feel guilt, like every time I'm at home with sick kids, the impact that has on my team. I feel the guilt around, well, I'll only be able to get to the 2 out of the 3 things. That means that third thing is probably going to be pushed onto one of my team. And then it impacts them. Like, that's, I think, a really hard thing. And tell you, this winter, I'm sure there are parents out there that have probably had more than 10 days of carers leave. You know, that's an impact. There's guilt, there's stress. Does that affect your career? I don't know. Like, I mean, you know, as you're all aware, I'm a HR practitioner. Certainly wouldn't in our firm, but I think it does. It does affect your output, right? If you're not there to do the work and your team is also busy, it will affect output. But yeah, you got to really think about the flow on. It's a really hard thing.
100%.
That is bum life.
100% parent life, isn't it? Honestly, I mean, again, like, you know, the fact that you are, you know, so for those listening, Liv heads up a HR firm heads up a HR
firm.
She's just like the founder of her own. No, I'm just making things up. No, she heads up HR at a law firm. So yeah, and so obviously HR is your jam. Have you in the past had people come to you, perhaps, you know, because of their qualms of being parents and the realities of that, with any struggles that, you know, that come to mind?
I actually get more expectant parents or young women who are thinking about starting a family who will ask, can you do it all? Can you have it all? And I say, no, you can't have it all, or you can't have it all, right? Like, you can have it all. You can have a career and be a working mum and have a gorgeous family and feel really present. But in terms of what your definition of all is, that's what you've got to really understand and really go into it with your eyes open around what support you're going to need, what support exists, and what are your boundaries? Like, that's certainly something that I'm starting to put more into place now around when I get home at 6:30, like, I should not be on my phone until those kids are asleep. Like, I was finding that I'd get home and I'd be straight into my office, you know, finishing off those last few emails. That's now, like, you just have to get strict with yourself. But yeah, in terms of our workplace, yeah, it's certainly about, what should I be thinking, doing? You know, we certainly, are very flexible and really try and work with our mums. I'm sure there's so much more that we could be doing. We're looking at a couple of products at the moment which help caregivers in general, whether you're a carer of children or a carer of elderly parents or a child with a disability or a family member with a disability, you know, really understanding caregiving as a greater concept and understanding how you can support people so that they do feel like they can have it all. And build a workplace culture where it's about trust. And that's certainly what we do at our firm. That's what it's got to be built on.
Well, at the end of the day as well, people want to feel valued and understood. And as an employer, I mean, as you know, it's so expensive to hire new staff. And in this environment today, it's hard to even get, you know, good staff because there's a huge demand for resources and not much international, not many internationals coming in. So you want to be looking after your people, right? And I think this is where businesses are going. It's so important.
Businesses have got to be more open to job shares and have got to be open to compressed hours or just trusting that, you know, you can work whenever you can work. You know, that's certainly how I work, that if I leave at 3:30, well, that's because my business knows that I'll probably be online later after I've, you know, been there for the kids. And I want everyone in my business to have access to that. It shouldn't just be, certain people. I really want to shift the culture around what's possible. Because certainly, you know, in the 15 years that we've been in the workforce, 15 plus years we've been in the workforce now, it's really, progressing now, which is really fantastic. But there's certainly a lot of sectors, health, education, that probably, you know, female-dominated industries that probably need to be a lot more flexible with how they structure their hours and work type setups.
It's very difficult but it is hard to shift culture, right? Like, and if it's not coming from the top down, then it's very difficult to shift. I mean, what comes to mind for me is I used to work at Ernst & Young in management consulting, and I worked there for about 4 years. And particularly when I was like, you know, the first year, like little, you know, workhorse, I would stay there at the client's office till midnight just for FaceTime so that, you know, my boss who was sitting next to me didn't feel like I was being, weak by leaving early because I was exhausted because I'd been sitting there since 8 in the morning. How dare I leave before him, right? So, and then so I've had experiences like that where you just go, I don't think that would fly. I hope that wouldn't fly as much these days, but
it doesn't fly. There's actually legislation
right.
that's been put in place now, and some real understanding around psychosocial stuff, which is around the impact of doing those sorts of hours. Where it has really negative detriment. In some cases, significant mental health. It's now a liability for businesses, which is fantastic.
Yes.
And we've got to shift, and businesses are shifting from a culture of presenteeism. But that is very typical of for even 5 years ago in a lot of professional services businesses where you weren't working unless you were sitting at your desk at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or midnight. And if the partner's there, you're
there. That's right.
Thank God that's gone.
Honestly, and what comes to mind as well is I used to, as you know, I used to date an investment banker, and they work such ridiculous hours. He would come in at 2 in the morning and leave again by 7 to hit the gym and then go straight to the office. And I'm like, wow, that culture of sitting at your desk and and it's just the FaceTime, so you look like, I was like, there's no way you're that productive for that many hours till 2 o'clock in the morning from Monday to Thursday, because Friday he'd usually lock off early enough for Friday night drinks. But I'm like, dude, how is that productive? And I think it's going to be really difficult to shift a culture like that. But hopefully we're seeing more of that going forward. Because what if you've got families?
Governments had to intervene. I mean, some of those industries will be very, very slow to change. But certainly taking care of particularly graduates or early career employees who perhaps haven't. They haven't been able to say no. Well, now, government has made it a lot easier. They're supporting those people now.
Yeah, it's so important. And the one thing that actually came to mind as you were talking about boundaries was I read Michelle Obama's book. It's amazing, by the way. I can't remember the name of it, but Google it. It's her own book. The only book I think she's written. Anyway, it's kind of a memoir.
It's called Becoming. I'm just looking at it on my bookshelf.
It's Becoming. Okay, I freaking loved that book. I love her. But the one thing she mentioned in the book was she was trying to tailor the kids' schedule and when they were going to eat dinner and stuff based on when, Obama would come home. And she was getting so frustrated by that. And she was just kind of like, I can't. And she got to a point where she's like, I can't keep my children up and have them eat dinner so late because you got held up at this meeting. I mean, this guy's like, how's that for big jobs, right? So she was just like, you know what? From now on, I am going to at 6:30. The kids are sitting at the table. We're eating. If you want to be there, great. If you can't be there, great. But that is what we're doing. And she goes, what was interesting was he would make it home by 6:30 because he knew he'd miss the window of seeing his children if he didn't attend. And so I implemented that at home because I was finding that I was so sick. It was such a resentment piece for me because I'm home from 3, 4 o'clock onwards. By the time it's 7 o'clock at night, I'm like, God, my day's ended. And then Jules would stroll in the door or whatever it looked like. And I was like, nah, from now on, 6:30, that's what it is. I'm eating my dinner with the kids at 6:30. If you want to be there, great. If you don't want to be there, great. And he's able to make that work. So I thought that was a good hot tip for those listening as well.
Great tip. You've just got to work out, what those things are for your family. That make you feel like you are achieving the balance and prioritizing both if that's what you choose to do. And I think we just have to be, a lot more supportive of, whatever people's decision is around career or raising children or both.
Absolutely, because they're both, in themselves a job, right? Michelle was like, yes, I was predominantly looking after our children, but you've got to respect that that's my job. And so if you don't want to be present at this time, I've got to continue on with my job of looking after our children. So this is what it's going to be. So for those staying at home and as you said, for those working, all power to you. But it certainly can be a point of contention. To this caller who called in, I feel you. you. I think always there's going to be such a shift in dynamics when children come to play, and particularly when you have another one or another one, like it's just a shift again. But I guess know that you're not alone. We're all going through it as well. Yeah. And don't be too hard on yourself, I guess, would be my final piece of guidance.
Yeah. We're doing the best we can. How many times have I said that to you? I still catch myself a handful of times every week. If I arrive at the office at 9:30 and that's the best that I could do, me just saying to myself and being kinder to myself that I'm doing the best I can has made everything just seem a lot more achievable.
Yeah, I love that. Such a good
happy
reminder.
Happy kids, happy mum, happy family. That's what it's about.
Totally. All right, guys, we'll catch you next time. Bye.